Hello to our listeners and welcome to the Career Coven. We're doing a special episode this week. So Annie and I have separately interviewed other people that we have managed. So Annie has interviewed Francesca, who I manage, and I've interviewed Dani, who Annie used to manage. And the purpose of this exercise was to give ourselves the ultimate 360 of what it's like working with us, given we chat so much on this podcast. So we thought we'd give you the real insight. The important thing to say is that both Dani and Francesca have been given carte blanche to say whatever they want without consequences. These are two women that we have absolutely loved working with. So have a great time listening to this, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. I certainly learned a lot about how Gen Z presenting Annie is.
So, Francesca, it's so nice to be chatting to you about Bec and what she's really like at work. I can't wait.
Thanks for having me.
Honestly, such a pleasure. Thank you for doing it. So, I guess first things first for all the listeners, can you describe your working relationship to Bec?
Yes. So Bec and I actually first met when working in government. So we started on the exact same day in 2018. So we celebrate our work anniversary every August. But this was my first job out of university. I had literally graduated a couple of weeks prior, so I was unbelievably green and also naturally quite terrified, which she definitely picked up on immediately. So although she wasn't my official line manager at this point, she kind of took me under her wing basically straight away in almost a kind of mentorship capacity. And then about a year on, I applied for a role in her team. So that was the kind of first time she had formally managed me. And we worked in that team together up until early 2020, and then the pandemic hit. And then we were moved, or surged as they call it in government, to different areas of the department for COVID response. And then I worked in that team for about 6 to 8 months, and then I actually moved department within government, and shortly after Bec then moved to the BBC. And then a role came up in her team at the BBC, which I applied for, and we've been reunited there for about 18 months now.
That is so amazing. And I mean, firstly, thank you for everything you did in COVID. I feel like everyone that was working in the government was just working so hard in such extraordinary times. But also, I mean, I love that you definitely applied and didn't get stolen, but you have done 2 roles in 2 places with Bec. So that's really cool. So right now, what is your job and what is Bec's job?
So I am a strategy and program manager in the advertising division of BBC Studios. So working on business transformation and commercial development projects and programs. And I report into her as VP of strategy. When I first joined, she was heading up a slightly different and larger team actually, and had a slightly different remit, but we've since moved to a slightly different division within the business. So it's now just the 2 of us working on all things strategy.
Perfect. Oh, well, it sounds like it always sounds very complicated, your organisation. Like there's so many moving parts and there's so many people.
It's very large.
Yeah, from my perspective, like having mostly worked in tiny businesses, that complexity is like really terrifying.
Hello, Dani. How are you?
I'm good, Bec. Very excited to be on here as the number one fan, or the podcast number one fan.
You could be my personal fan too.
We'll review at the end of the episode to see if we're going to be best friends.
Well, look, we're delighted to have you on here. You have been line managed by Annie. Do you want to do a quick intro to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, amazing. So I'm Dani Conlon. I've been working at the Lowdown for 2.5 years, and I basically manage all things community and partnerships. So that means like chatting to brands, chatting to people on the DMs, emails, all that jazz.
Lovely. Well, great to have you here. And obviously, Annie has just finished her time at the Lowdown, which I'm sure you're incredibly sad about. But can you tell us a bit more about your working relationship to Annie? So, how long were you guys working together, and what was Annie's kind of capacity while you were doing that? I assume you were probably in the same role.
Yeah, so Annie went in, I think she joined us in August last year, and she was the founder of the Lowdown's interim CEO. So she managed me for about 6 months. I was kind of counting it because we had a switch over in June. So yeah, she was kind of managing a lot of people, but she ended up managing me as well as part of that interim CEO role. And then when the founder came back, she ended up being Chief Product Officer, which I was like, oh, I love that title. It was quite different what she was up to because she ended up managing the product team.
Awesome.
So, okay, let's get into it. Bec's management style. Let's start with the positives. What do you think are the best parts of the way that she manages you?
So I think the first thing I'd say is that she is just incredibly supportive, both professionally and personally. And she really takes the time to kind of understand you as a person, what makes you tick, your kind of ways of working, and how to kind of bring the best out of you. And I remember when she first started line managing me back in government, and this has always stuck with me, she sent this really long induction email explaining her ways of working, her expectations, how she likes to receive information, and then asked me to fill in some questions to the same effect, which was a bit of a novelty at the time. But I just knew kind of from the outset that she genuinely cared and was really kind of committed to forming the best relationship, kind of working relationship possible. The second thing I would say is that she always champions and gives a hell of a lot of credit to the work of her team, and will always look for opportunities to elevate you, to kind of gain exposure and visibility to senior stakeholders and other areas of the business. And she's just really passionate about the development of her team, and will always push you to your maximum potential, but is always there to kind of provide direction and steer so you don't feel like you're in that kind of panic zone. But overall, I just say, like, wherever I've worked with her and in kind of whatever team and whatever capacity, she will just always strive to try and create the best team culture possible, where everyone feels kind of valued, respected, and really empowered.
Oh my God, I hope that Dani says some of that stuff about me. That was so nice. I was like, fuck. This podcast was a bad idea because Dani's going to be like, yeah, she's super organized. That's going to be like it. That's going to be the best I
I'm
get,
thinking you're up
Francesca.
too much already.
No, I think you can tell, can't you? You can just tell she cares so much, and that's why she's our friend as well, and she's just such a warm person. But the thing I really admire about Bec, and maybe she'll edit this out, but she's so boundaried, and I think that like those boundaries and those expectations, like with that warmth, must be like just the best combination.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Okay, so now let's get into the worst parts, because she can't just be this golden girl. She can't just have all that glow without a little bit of something juicy.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a worse part, but I think working together, we are quite similar and kind of match and mirror in terms of having like quite high levels of attention to detail and kind of expectation in terms of our work and our outputs, which I personally love, but I don't actually think that's always helpful, particularly when you're in a team of two. I think there's a potential risk there of kind of holding each other back. And she probably is better at letting go than I am. But I think we do both have to remind ourselves and each other sometimes that sometimes it's kind of it's good enough to move on, and over analyzing a piece of work over and over it's usually not a very productive use of time.
Like that perfectionism
Exactly.
that you both have it.
Yes.
Interesting.
And I think when you're in a team of two and you're both quite similar in that way, it can be quite limiting sometimes.
But I bet they get the most amazing outputs from the both of you. So they're probably like, we fucking love it. I need a you to work with me or a Bec, because I am like such a not perfectionist that I know like I know that people get annoyed when I send them these like sloppy PowerPoints, but I'm like, but the number is right and I'm done. Like I'm done. So yeah, I envy it. I think you always want a bit of like what you don't have, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me how you would describe Annie's management style. Give us the highlights and the lowlights.
Yeah, okay. I would say in general, I think Annie is a bit more hands-off compared to different managers I have. I've had loads of different jobs just for reference. I've kind of worked like hospitality, retail, used to work at a theatre. I've just had like so many different jobs, and the lowdown's kind of been my first proper office job. And I think overall she's probably been the most hands-off of all the managers I've had, which has been really nice. Not to say that she's like that relaxed, but it's just like a really nice mix. So I think the best parts about Annie's management styles is that she gives a lot of praise,
Oh,
potentially sometimes too much praise. She's like, "You're a star," and I'm like, "I literally just replied to an email. Like that is not star worthy, but I will take it." And she's very enthusiastic about stuff like that. It's kind of the same thing, but she'll be really enthusiastic about something sort of silly. I'll just say, "Oh, we just did this thing," and she's like, "Epic, amazing!" And she loves an emoji, so she ends up using like 5 different emojis on Slack to convey how happy she feels about that thing, which I really love.
what would you say are her most common emojis that she uses?
Okay, so this is a whole thing, but she absolutely loves the green tick emoji.
Oh yeah.
We actually got her a moon pig card with a big tick that says, "Thank you for all your hard work, Annie." And we got everyone to tick it in Slack, so it comes up with like 10 reactions to it, which is very fun. She also likes the painting your nails emoji. She's like,
Oh yeah.
that one. Yeah, it depends on her mood, but I think those two are her biggies. My favorite is the salute.
That is a very powerful emoji to use. I can really see Annie as a green tick emoji because it's like a get shit done emoji. You're like, bam, finished.
Yeah, it's like I don't have anything to say, but I've read it and I've seen it. And it's just a tick. I do it all the time now. I love it.
I'd say it's slightly more sophisticated than a thumbs up. You know?
Yeah. There's this whole thing about how Gen Z people, which we'll talk about later because I have thoughts about Gen Z millennial things.
Great.
But there's this whole thing about Gen Z people crying when their manager sends them a thumbs up because they just think it seems really passive aggressive, which I actually don't really care about. But I'm like on the cusp. And the tick is, yeah, exactly. It's a bit more sophisticated. It's got less weight.
She's thought about her audience there. Love that. Are there any like worst parts about Annie's management style? I mean, we've had a whole episode in season 1 about how much she loves feedback. Does everyone love the feedback that Annie gives?
Yeah, it was funny because I was listening to that episode and I was like, I love feedback, so it really helps. But I think you, Beck, were like less comfortable about feedback.
Oh.
And I think if you, at our job, if you don't like feedback, you would struggle, I think. But I really like it, so I'm fine. I would say one of the worst parts is sometimes Annie checks in a lot, which is the thing that a great manager should do. But sometimes she knows I'm like not feeling great before I do. So she'll be like, "You were quite quiet today." And I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I am quiet because this thing happened yesterday that annoyed me." It's just like she knows me better than I know myself, which is kind of a really nice thing in a manager. It's really important to like be able to see how other people are feeling. But sometimes I'd be like, damn it, Annie. I was happy in ignorance with this thing.
You're like, I was just stewing in bad mood by myself. What do you mean I have to talk about it?
But just on the feedback thing, I think whenever I've received feedback from Annie, it's been to the point, but in the right setting. I think that's the point of feedback, isn't it? As long as it's in the right space, feedback shouldn't be an uncomfortable thing.
Okay. Is there anything that Bec does day to day that you wish she didn't do? Like anything that annoys you a bit? I'm obviously going to dig around for negatives now you've said such nice things.
Oh, I wouldn't say anything necessarily annoys me because we've just worked together for so long now.
You know it now.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it does freak me out just kind of how well she knows me sometimes, and the way she reads people is just pretty unmatched. Like if there's something that she says that I don't necessarily agree with, like she can tell straight away. Like, and I think I've got quite a good poker face, but there's no kind of hiding. So I'd probably say that can get a bit annoying.
Okay, that she can like read you.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you read her?
I think so. Again, she likes to think she's got a good poker face, but I can always tell.
I definitely do not think she has got a good poker.
The mask does slip sometimes.
No, she's very, very professional, of course, but I know when I've annoyed her.
Yeah.
I don't think that's very often, I should say, when she listens to this. I don't think I've annoyed you that often, but I'm sure I know when I have.
Is there anything Annie does that you wish that they didn't do?
Yes. So I have a few. This is like really stupid, and I don't even think I've ever told her this, but I don't know if you use Slack, but she never ever replies to a thread on Slack. It will be like always separate, and it really annoys me. I'll be like, because I'm such a Slack queen that I like to like look for it later. And so she never replies to a Slack message.
That's a horrible offence in my eyes, or at least your eyes.
Right, 100%. I'm not fuming about it. It's just, it's been on my mind for a while. And then, on the praise, sometimes I think that she probably gives praise when I don't really need it. Like, she bought me flowers once for doing something as part of my job. And she was like, "You're a legend." And I was like, "It's so beautiful, like, such a lovely person to do that." But also, you don't need to give me flowers for doing my job description.
Oh, what a softie.
Such a softie. She'll hate that. 100%. It was actually her birthday. So she was holding these, they were really nice. They were like white tulips. And she was walking up to me and I was like, "Oh, when Dave got her those, like, I need to go and get her card at lunchtime." Like, I was remembering. And she was like, "These are for you." And I was like, "Oh, why?" It's your birthday weekend. But I mean, that's like a really nice thing that I wish she didn't do.
Oh,
Maybe I'd take it back.
that is actually lovely.
Okay, what do you think should be on Bec's development plan?
That's a good question. I would say that we've probably got very used to working in a team of two and, as mentioned, operating quite a similar way. So I guess looking ahead, when she goes on to manage a larger team again, I think it will be about adapting to new and potentially different personalities and ways of working again, as well as making sure that she kind of continues to delegate as she gets more senior, when less of the actual kind of work falls on her plate.
Interesting. Yeah, I really struggle with this myself. Like every time I have transitioned into a role where I do less of the output, I find that really, really hard. And I feel a bit useless. And I start to be like, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had some feedback on that recently from my team, which was really, really funny. Because they were like, "You're doing enough for us and we're doing our jobs and that's fine." And I was like, "Okay, I think I need to like leave," basically. So, always good to have an extreme reaction. But yeah, so what you're saying is you guys have now worked in this small kind of high functioning team where you both know each other like two peas in a pod.
Mm-hmm.
and there will be a time when that won't be the case, and that might take a bit of adjustment for her.
Yes, I'd say so.
Okay. This is all so nice, Francesca. So nice.
What do you think should be on Annie's development plan?
Yeah, so I think she spoke about this in a previous episode, but I still kind of think she does it, so I'm going to call her out on her own podcast. But it's this thing about when you're giving people feedback, and sometimes she'd end up doing the thing for you instead of actually giving the feedback. And I think in a startup, that's what happens. You really want to send that email quickly. And so she'd like write the email for me. And I think that probably, if I were to really say anything, it would be, just give me the feedback, make me write it, and then I'll learn maybe faster.
Is there something you can tell me that you think people who have listened to this podcast would not know about Bec?
I think one thing that always strikes me is just how many past and current hobbies, interests, extracurricular activities she's involved in. Like, I couldn't have been like less surprised when she told me she was going to Antarctica for 3 weeks. Like, it's the most on-brand thing I've ever heard. But honestly, like pottery, photography, girl guiding, boxing, rowing, rugby, volunteering, like you name it, she's done it. But even though I've known her for like coming up to 6 years now, I'm still finding out about past hobbies that she used to do. And my favourite this week, obviously inspired by the Olympics, was the fact that she did gymnastics when she was younger. But I'm not just talking like cartwheels and handstands, like she did the vault, the uneven bars, the whole lot. She thought she could be an Olympian. Yeah.
I did not know. I don't know anyone who's done the bars.
Neither. So it's quite easy, actually. It's not
of course, she said it was easy. Oh my God.
But also just how she manages to like balance all these hobbies with her job, like is something that always impresses me. But I do just tell her to take a nap sometimes. Just like what
she is like hyper functional, but like in a balanced way.
Yeah, it's mad.
I'm so jealous of it because I had so much coaching, honestly, for years. And every time I had my coaching session, I would be like, I just need a hobby so that I work less. And he would be like, yeah, we've had this conversation before. So like, what have you done about it? And I'm like, well, I still exercise, which is just like so boring. I'm such a bleak person.
I'm exactly the same. I'm exactly the same. It's a big contrast.
Yeah. One day we'll get there. One day we'll get there, but I can tell you it's not going to be today for me.
Okay, tell us something that you think the pod listeners might not know about Annie.
I've been waiting for this question. I'm very excited to talk about this. I don't know if she's ever spoken about this, but Annie is a horse girl. And the reason I know this is because in the first, I think it was probably like the first week she'd been managing me, I made a reference to someone being a horse girl, and I was being derogatory. And I was like, well, she's just a bit of a horse girl, isn't she? And she was like, oi, I'm a horse girl. And I remember texting my friend being like, I've got a new manager and she's going to be my manager for like the next 6 months. And I've just slagged off her entire culture, like being a horse girl. And yeah, now it's a bit of crap between us. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, she hates me. She's going to think I'm really being mean. Horse girls, like, because I'm kind of also from the countryside-y area. Horse girl is derogatory. Like, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, but she looks quite cool to me. So I just wasn't expecting
it. She's not like running around in a barber jacket out in the field. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. But that's why representation matters, because, it's good
to get all flavours of the country. Dani, for our listeners who are not from the UK, can you give a definition of horse girl?
What is a horse girl? Someone who loves horse riding and who's like kind of obsessed with their horses. So they'll like take photos with their horses. They'll like I'm trying to think of what else they do. They're just sort of, and I'm not a mean girl. What I'm about to say is really mean girl energy. Is like at college, the horse girls were kind of the losers. they were kind of like farm girl vibes. I'm just digging myself into a deeper hole. Don't know how
We
I
can
feel.
decide whether you want to cut that out later, but I enjoyed it very much. So I hope you decide we can keep it in.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny. I've got another thing
Yeah, go on.
that she's just a massive pop culture fan. She, which I mean, you'll probably know, but yeah, she loves Charlie XCX. She loves Taylor Swift. I think it was a bit of a shock for me. I was like, whoa, she's just DM'd me that Taylor Swift's got a new album before I knew that Taylor Swift had a new album. Um, so she's a big pop girly, which we connected on a lot. And when she went to Glasgow, she did a Glasgow Awards, which was really cute. So she like tagged everyone in Slack, like, um, "Are you ready for the Glasgow Awards?" And then she put a comment: "If I don't get any responses, I will not be doing this, by the way." And then, which I was like, that is so pick me energy. And then everyone replied like, "Yes, I'd love it. I loved it." And I absolutely loved it. She said like all of her fave artists, the biggest flop, all that jazz.
Amazing.
Which I think
I mean,
great.
she is a pop girly, as am I. I mean, I don't want to out myself too much on this, but Annie and I are both in a WhatsApp group with a third person called Maths UK, which was set up specifically for a nightly discussion about Married at First Sight. So
This is amazing. I've actually never seen it.
Australia's much better.
I really want to watch it.
Okay. What is in your memory or in your mind at the moment as one of the most either hilarious or kind of iconic moments that you've had whilst working with Bec?
Oh gosh, there has certainly been a lot of the thick of it and W1A moments over the years. But I'd say one moment that does spring to mind was a project that we were working on in government, and it was supposed to be quite a short-term thing, but ended up going on a lot longer than we had expected. And it was quite a high-profile one, and we were working with lots of external stakeholders, but there was also quite a lot of kind of cross-departmental ways of working. And Bec was drafted into the project a couple of months in to try and get things moving again. And she developed a kind of really comprehensive delivery plan and presented it to the other departments. And there was this one man from another department who, let's just say, made things a hell of a lot more difficult than they needed to be. And I was watching him the entire presentation. He was just sat there with a face on. And I was waiting for him to interject. And then he finally interjected towards the end and just totally mansplained project management to her, and just reeled off every reason why what she was proposing wasn't feasible. And as an example, said, Bec, the best way I would explain it is that two women cannot make a baby in 4.5 months. It's just not possible. And we were all just like stunned into silence. But I would just say the way she dealt with it and moved forward from it was a pretty iconic moment.
I don't even like those kinds of things, just completely stop me in my tracks.
No, I know, it really did.
Yeah, I probably would have got fired on the spot, so that's me.
Okay, next question. Tell us what your most hilarious or iconic experience has been with Annie in the workplace.
Also love this question, by the way. I think it's kind of on that pop culture theme, but I had to teach Annie what Zillennial meant, meaning Gen Z / Zillennial. And I'm going to explain what it means because I screenshot what it says on Urban Dictionary.
Great. I was like, I don't know what this means. Does that mean that I'm old?
Maybe. So Urban Dictionary, which we know is not the best website, says that millennials are the last years of millennials and the first year of Gen Z with mixed traits of both. So we ended up doing, this is also outing myself, but we ended up doing a yes or no. I can't even think about how you describe these things.
Like a logic tree, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. And I think Annie got Zillennial, and she was like, "What is Zillennial?" And I was like, "The fact you don't even know that proves that you're millennial." And then I think we ended up doing the test. She was like, "No, I am a Zillennial." And then every time she does anything vaguely Gen Z, she'll be like, "I am Zillennial." And I'm 27, so I was born 1997, and I'm actually legit Zillennial, but I'm probably on the more Gen Z.
To be clear, Annie is not a Zillennial.
She's not, but she has Zillennial
Okay.
energy.
What do people, or do you think people in the company say about Bec when she's not in the room?
I would say they'd say she has incredibly high standards, very high levels of kind of accountability and motivation, but also expects that of others around her. I would probably say they'd say she's quite direct in approach, but her ability to kind of lead and guide and get things done is kind of very, very impressive. And I'd also say that they probably say she's a very kind of passionate person, both in and outside of work. Like, she really cares about supporting and elevating women in particular in the workplace, and loads of other really kind of important causes. And then she does really kind of go above and beyond in those areas.
I just honestly can't believe how nice you're being. And it's so good because it's true, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to know such an amazing person.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, selfishly, I am just thinking, what the fuck is Dani going to say about me?
Tell us a bit more about other people's experience of Annie. What do you reckon people at the lowdown say about Annie when she's not in the room?
Okay, what do people say about Annie when she's not in the room? Before I met her, one of my colleagues said that she was stylish. It was like, Annie Coleridge is a very stylish person. And I was like, that is such a random thing to say about someone who's just about to join. I was like, like, what does she do? Like, tell me more about her. And they were like, she's just very stylish. And then I met her and I was like, I get it. She is a bit stylish.
Hard agree. I think that was the first thing I
Yeah.
thought about her as well when I saw her. I didn't know her at all, and I was like, damn, she's got a good outfit on.
She just left, so we've been talking about her a bit more. I mean, we're always talking about her, but we were speaking about her, and I think she wasn't in a meeting because maybe she was in Denmark. And our founder Alice said, "Can everyone make sure you get a meeting with Annie, and just catch up on anything you need to catch up on?" And she was like, "Yeah, one thing everyone should catch up with Annie on is how to become the most efficient person ever," which I thought was like a really great compliment. So I think, yeah, everyone's always like, how does she get everything done? That's something that I have heard people say. But at the same time, she is that kind of doer, right? She always gets it done, but she is pretty relaxed. We had an event and everyone was flapping. Like, I'm not really a flapper, but even I was a bit stressed. The ice was late, and people were arriving and we didn't have any ice. And I was like, stressed. And I just came up to Annie and Annie was like, it's not that deep, really. And I was like, oh, yeah, she is just that chilled energy that you need in the room when everyone else is like,
Oh, she is iconic in that way, I would say. She is totally a get shit done. Like, honestly, when we're doing this podcast and like I will do the first rough edit of an episode and send it to Annie, and she will listen to it, take notes, send me a voice note of feedback, all while on a run. And I'm like, you're insane.
Yeah. Maybe that's what people say about her behind her back, that she's insane.
Tell her to her face, to be fair.
Right, final comment from you. If you had to summarize, how has Bec helped you in your career? What would you say?
I would say, I think like lots of people, I've struggled with quite low self-confidence and like the inevitable imposter syndrome. particularly in the early years of my career. And she's given me quite a lot of tough love over the years, but has kind of really believed in me. And like sometimes when I haven't kind of believed I could do it. But I would also say she's just really challenged and stretched me, and in the best possible way will never let me be overly comfortable, which is obviously hugely beneficial for like kind of overall development. And we were actually reflecting in like my last performance review about the first performance review that she ever did for me back in 2018, and just how different it is and kind of how much I've come on, which was really nice. But I think a lot of that I do kind of owe to her for sure.
Oh, well, you guys obviously just have the most kind of beautiful working relationship and friendship outside of work. And it is amazing that you've kind of like been together off and on since 2018. That's so nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, really appreciate it. You've been so pleasant and joyful. But yeah, it's been such a nice time chatting to you. And of course, Bec comes out with glowing references. So let's see what happens on the other side, Francesca.
I can't wait to listen.
Quaking in my boots.
Okay, last question. Tell me how Annie has helped you in your career. What's she done? And tell us a bit about that.
She's taught me a lot, you know. So obviously I met her a year ago, and I think I would say I'm still pretty kind of early on in my career. And I think she taught me a lot about different kinds of leadership, which I really love. I've been actually so lucky to be, because I said I've had lots of jobs, but more recently in the past 3 years, I've mostly only been managed by women, which is just so amazing. You know, that's very, very rare. And I always tell my friends, like, oh, I'm managed by this lovely lady. And they're like, a woman? And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, which is why I love the podcast so much, because it's just really important to be able to talk about these things, you know, as a young woman at the middle of my career, like kind of getting in there. So yeah, really great. I think it's definitely interesting being managed by women, because now I would say, and I always have been a bit like this, but I don't really like it when men tell me what to do. So, women tell me what to do, yeah, of course. How can I do more? When men tell me what to do, I'm like, I don't want to do this thing, which is very funny. When I first met Annie, when she actually started working with us, she made a notion of what she's like to work with, and which I've never seen before in my life. And when she sent it, I was like, oh, it's a bit strange. Like, why do we need this? Like, and I love it. I think it's such a great thing. I mean, I would do it if I ever went anywhere else. I think it's so, you know, I haven't seen the notion for a while, but she kind of highlights her boundaries, you know, how she likes to work. And that's just really amazing. I think that will help me a lot. What else?
I mean, I love that she's highlighted her boundaries, because she gave so much chat on the boundaries episode about how bad she was at setting her boundaries, and that sounds exceptional from Annie. So I think she's underscored herself there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that she put in is kind of like she likes to be prepared for things. And I thought that was that she likes to be prepared for meetings and all stuff like that. I think that's a boundary that she probably doesn't really think of as a boundary. But yeah, she says she struggles with boundaries, but I'm like, no, you don't. I think you're all right. Well, that's her opinion. I guess on the flowers thing, that is just a lovely thing to do. Like, and I think that will really help me when I'm a manager in the future to kind of remember how to kind of take care of your employees. Yeah, so I've learned a lot. What else have I got? Oh, another one is that she's always very enthusiastic and active in conversations. And I always find, so I've recently started working remotely. And what she does in kind of like Google Meets is that she'll react a lot to things. So she'll like do the like party emoji, and you know when it goes like can't do it here, you know what I mean? Party emoji, smiley face, thumbs up, and it's really, I think, it's such a great thing to be able to do, because when you're working remotely, you can't really show how you're feeling. You know, someone's presenting and you don't want to interrupt, but you want to give positive feedback. I think that's a really nice thing to do, and I've been doing it since she's gone. So I think that's
The hype girl
nice.
baton has been passed on to you.
That's it, hype girling. That's what I've learned from Annie, how to hype girl.
I think it's a really important leadership style. Everyone likes a hype girl.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then I wanted to add that Susan, because we can't not talk about Susan when we're talking about Annie.
I was wondering whether Susan was going to come up, and I was like, shit, is Dani not a dog person? Like, Susan deserves a special mention.
No, exactly. So I was going to say that kind of, you know, Monday mornings, I love my job, but sometimes I find Monday mornings difficult. And I will always come in on Monday because I know Susan's going to be there. Because Susan just chills me out, and it's just so nice. Like, it's not really particularly stressful. It's always like Sunday scaries, I feel like, are always scarier than what Monday ends up being. But I'll come in, Susan will give me lots of kisses.
Is it the licks like up the nose and in the ear that she gives you too? Yeah.
Yeah. My dog's the same though, so I'm not that mad about it. But I think some people are probably like, what? If you're not a dog person, you'd be like, oh. So Susan's kind of taught me it's not that deep as well, in a similar Annie way. That it's like, you know, it's not that deep. Let's just have a run around.
I'm so glad that Susan got a special mention. I was going to feel nervous if we'd done this episode and Susan hadn't been mentioned. So she's got her own segment towards the end. Thank you, Susan, for your service to all people. She's the best dog ever.
She's the best. We got Annie a leaving present, and it's a jumper with Susan's face on it.
I got a picture of that immediately, obviously. It is incredible. Well, Dani, that's all the questions that we had. Do you have any parting words on Annie before we let you get on with your evening?
Annie's just great. She's a great person and manager and friend.
You've been promoted from colleague to friend. You've made it.
I know. That's what she said she wanted to be. She wanted to be colleague to friend. And yeah, I think I kind of mentioned it, but I think what you two are doing is really amazing. And I'm so excited for you to grow. And then to be like, I was on the podcast season 2 when you are in the studio. So I'm just excited.
Well, thank you for being our hype girl too, Dani. It's lovely and we love it. Yeah. Brill. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much, Dani.